The God that has your back is a God of miracles. I love that. I'm glad that I have an almighty God. And I tell you what, He is still in the miracle business. He has not changed. There are still miracles that are taking place today, yesterday, not just in the biblical time that we can open up our Bible and go, oh yeah, when the sun stood still, that was a miracle. When the walls of Jericho came down because of the voices, that was a miracle. God is still doing miracles today, and He is a God that has your back, that will do miracles in your life and in the surroundings of you. Matthew chapter 14, verse 19 and 20. Then He commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, He blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments that remained. Here we have God that we see in Scripture takes just a little bit and does a humongous miracle. Over 5,000. Add the women, the children, over 5,000. A huge miracle takes place where He takes a small, and there's so many messages in here about, you take a little bit and you get a lot, or you take where people don't understand that this is going to take place and they see the miracle that takes place. And so what I'm saying to you, God had their back in the sense where He fed them. Because I'll tell you what, and it's 20 to 12, and we're starting to grumble a little bit, and we can't wait to have the food blessed so that we can enjoy the potluck. Right, Brother Bud? There's a lot of good desserts down there today. I know it. And I'll tell you what, there is a time where we know that we're going to be fed, and it's good. I'm going to tell you this. It's good to fellowship and eat together. Okay? But God set them down. He preached to them. He ministered to them. People were healed. And I'll tell you what, if there was people being healed, I can almost guarantee you in that 5,000 or 15,000 people that were there, in that many people, they probably were going to wait in line until Jesus quit healing because they wanted to be healed. And so it didn't matter if it was like 10 o'clock at night. Have you ever been in a meeting that is so long and you're like, oh, wow, and you're grumbling and grumbling? They would have waited. And what happens? A miracle took place, and they were fed. God says that He has your back in the sense where a miracle can take place in your life. And you know what? I kind of like that. I got your back. I like that phrase. It almost reminds me, if you have ever seen George Lopez in the George Lopez show on Nickelodeon or something like, he had a phrase and it was, I got this. I could just see God going, don't worry about it. I got this. I can handle it. And so He's saying to us that He has it and that He can do miracles today. And I'm going to tell you a story. In 1975, a young man by the name of Raymond Dunn Jr. was born. 1975. Not biblical times. 1975. He was born, and unfortunately, during birth and during pregnancy, there was no oxygen, and he was born, and he had a handicap. And then as his life progressed, especially up to 5 years old, he had situations where they were discovering more and more problems in his life. And I'm going to tell you, here's one of his problems. He could only eat a certain meat product from Gerber Foods. And I'm not talking about, have you ever gone in the grocery store and Gerber Foods they now have an entire aisle of stuff. And maybe none of you have done this, the bananas and the blueberries are the best. I don't taste the squash. But the bananas and the blueberries, man, I could eat those out of the jar. but Raymond could only eat one kind of beef that was strained in almost a liquid form, and that was the only thing he could eat every day. Morning, he ate the beef. Noon, he ate the beef. Evening, he ate the beef. 5 years old, in 1985, so he's about 10 now, and Gerber quit making the stuff. Actually, it was a few years before that, Gerber quit making that particular line. In fact, the FDA came in and said, because of the FDA, the government, you can't make this. The government came in and told Gerber, no more. So the mother of Raymond just went everywhere. She even called up Gerber. And she told the story of her son, that this is the only thing, because of allergies or whatever it was, this is the only thing he can eat. I will take all you have. And so they gave her everything that they had for free. She went to grocery stores and bought up all that she could find. She had 2 years' supply that she had. And when that came to a time, I believe it was in 1985, she ran out. And here's a mother with a son who, think about it, when that next meal comes in the morning tomorrow, and you get up and you're hungry, okay, you can make it through that. You can make it through lunch even. But dinner time, you're feeling a little weak. And here's a young man who's weak to begin with and has nothing to eat. And she called up Gerber, and they had actually notified her that we don't have any more. And there was a certain group, an advocate for children that are handicapped, and they called up Gerber, and then they called up the government. And they got the government to overturn the FDA ruling. And Gerber said, you know what? We're going to make that one product for one boy. And the people of Gerber, they had their job. And yet they put in extra time, not for the company. They volunteered to come in and make up an entire assembly line. One whole section of a building was for one boy. And they made food for 10 years until he passed away at 20. Volunteering. That is, and I didn't know where to stick that, because do you see the compassion that a huge corporation did for one boy in the United States? Then at that, is it not a miracle? The government got out of the way and people started volunteering. Miracles still, because I'll tell you what, you might not think, oh, that's not a miracle. To the mother, that was a miracle. To the little boy who now had a meal, that was a miracle. Miracles are still taking place today. I also like it because it's such a small can of food. Can you see almost a relationship of a little bit was right here and God turned it into 10 years worth of food? Something small is a huge miracle. Some of us today have small things that we can do for God. You can be that miracle that God is working in someone's life if you'll just give that little small thing that you have and give it to God and say, God, do with it whatever you will, and I will be with you all the time doing it. Why? Because you got my back. Then lastly, Matthew chapter 14, verse 20. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of fragments that remained. I like this. So many times we look at the miracle that took place. Whenever I had preached on the feeding of the 5,000, I never ever talked about the healing service that took place first. It's so huge. Here we have the healing that takes place, and that's huge. Here we have a miracle where people are sitting down and eating, and they did it with just 5 loaves and 2 fish, and that was a huge miracle. But then here we need to look at the abundance that God overflowed. 12 baskets of fragments came up. People, they ate till they were filled. They were happy. Have you ever sat down at a meal and you start counting the things? Okay, because I know I got to share, so this goes to them, and I'm only going to get this little bit. God said, here you go, eat until you're filled. Woo, man. That would be one of those Thanksgiving meals where you eat so much you just got to lay down on the couch. But there is an abundance that comes from God. When God has your back, when God is with you, when God surrounds you, He just overpours the blessings your way. Just look for it. And it's just flowing out, and you'll have more and more, that your basket will just overflow. My God just keeps giving. And so forth. Here's the great thing. If you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, your life is not just in the survival mode. You're not just looking for that next meal. You're in a relationship with Jesus Christ. You are thriving. You are rejoicing. You are happy. There's happy Christians, not down in the dumps Christians. Because your God is there for you. My God is there for me. I might get down in the dumps, but you know why? What happens when you stay down in the dumps? Here's the thing. You can have a problem. I'm not saying problems are not going to come your way. You can have something that'll hurt you, that'll devastate you. You'll be at your lowest low. But what's going to happen is if you do not take your eyes off the abundance giver, you will be filled back up. You will be lifted back up. You will no longer be on the bottom. See, you can hit bottom. But when you have a God who has your back, life will thrive again. Not just in the survival mode, but in a joyful mode. My God provides more than enough. As the musicians come forward, whatever you're going through, God cares enough. He cares so much that He will be there to take care of every need you have. See, some of us need to get out the piece of paper and start listing our needs. Put them where you can see them and pray about them. Don't just sit there, oh, I wish God would take care of this. No, get on your knees. Oh, God, please take care of this. Show me ways that I know you're taking care of it. Show me to where I know that maybe there's something I need to change so that that need is met. And God says, I got your back. I'm there for you. And then at the same time, He says to us, those of us that are in a relationship with Him, that are thriving, those of us that are up on the mountaintop for the moment, He's saying, be a miracle. Show compassion. Show others the abundance that I have so that they might have a relationship with Jesus Christ.